In the meantime I made an agreement with the saintly gentleman of whom I spoke, that now and then he should come and visit me. Herein I discovered his great humility, since he was pleased to converse with such a wicked creature as myself. He accordingly began to visit me and encourage me, and he told me that I must not think of delivering myself from all my imperfections in one day, but that God would do it by little and little, and that he himself had been whole years in correcting some very little faults, not having been able to do the work sooner. O humility! What great blessings dost thou bestow on those with whom thou remainest, and even upon those who only approach the possessors of it! This saint, and in my opinion I may well give him this name, related certain things to me, which, through his humility, seemed weaknesses to him, but he did so for my cure. Considering his state of life, they were neither faults nor imperfections, but for me it was a very great fault to be subject to them. I do not speak thus without a reason, though perhaps I enlarge too much about these little trifles, but they are so important for enabling a soul to gain profit, and for teaching her to fly, though she may scarcely have any feathers, as the saying is, that no one who has not had experience thereof will believe what I say. I mention these things here because I hope in God that your reverence will derive profit from them, for my health consisted in discovering the means of curing myself, and in my directors exercising humility and charity towards me, and bearing patiently with me for not correcting myself entirely and immediately. I began to conceive so high a regard for this priest, for he used great discretion, and this by little and little, and showed me the way to overcome the devil, that I could not experience greater comfort than when I saw him, though it was but seldom. When he delayed his visits I was then much troubled, thinking that perhaps he did not come to see me because I was so wicked. When he came to know my great imperfections, which perhaps might have been sins, and after I had spoken to him I was much improved, and when I also mentioned to him the favors God had bestowed upon me, in order that he might enlighten me, he told me that they did not agree with each other, and that such favors were only fit for persons who were already very far advanced, and were very mortified. That for his part he could not help being greatly afraid, because there seemed to him to be an evil spirit in some things, though he could not be absolutely sure such was the case. But he wished me to consider well what I knew respecting my prayer, and to relate all the circumstances to him. Now here was the difficulty, for I neither knew much, nor could I tell much, respecting the nature of my prayer. For it is only a short time ago since God granted me the favor of understanding my prayer, and knowing how to speak of it. When he spoke in this manner to me, great was my affliction, and many tears I shed, through the fear I had. For I certainly desired to serve and please God, and I could not persuade myself that this came from the devil. I only feared, lest through my great sins our Lord might blind me, so that I could not understand my state. Turning over one day some books, to see if I could meet with anything concerning my prayer, I found in one which is called The Ascent to the Mountain, that is, relating to the union of a soul with God, all the proofs of what I used to say so often, viz., that I could not think of anything when I was in that kind of prayer. I marked with lines those places where the passages were to be found, and then I gave him the book, so that both he himself and the other holy priest and servant of God, of whom I have spoken, might peruse it, and tell me what I was to do, and whether it was their opinion I should give up my prayer altogether. Why should I expose myself to those dangers if now, after having used this kind of prayer for almost 20 years, I had derived no other benefit from it than to be imposed upon by the devil? It would be better for me not to practice this prayer at all, though this would be a hard case for me, since I had already found by experience what a state my soul was in without prayer. Thus everything now seemed wretched and miserable to me. I was like one having been cast into a river, saw more and more danger on whatever side he should go, and so was almost on the point of being drowned. This state is a very great affliction, and of such afflictions I have endured many, as I shall afterwards relate. And though what I say may seem to be of little importance, yet it may prove of some use towards understanding how a soul is to be tried. The affliction which is endured in these cases is indeed great, and much prudence is necessary, especially when men have to treat with women, for our weakness is very great, and great mischief may be done by telling us that such and such a thing comes from the devil, without at the same time considering the matter very carefully, removing us from all possible dangers, and advising us to keep things private. And it is proper that the men themselves should be careful in this respect. I speak on this subject as one who has had great trouble, because I could not find proper persons with whom to consult concerning my prayer. I could only ask this or that individual what he thought would be for my good, but they did me great harm, and many things have become public which ought to have remained private, since they are not fit for everyone to know, and besides it may seem as if they had been divulged by me. But I believe these people made such matters public without any fault on their side, and our Lord was pleased to permit this to happen, that so I might suffer. I am far from saying that what passed between us in confession was made public, but as they were the persons to whom I gave an account of my prayer, being moved thereto by my fears, that so they might enlighten me, I think they might have kept silence. However, I never could venture to conceal anything from such persons. I say, therefore, that such souls must be discreetly advised and animated, waiting till our Lord shall help them, as He did me. And if He had not done so, I should have suffered very great harm on account of my fears and apprehensions, and especially considering how much I was subject to palpitation of the heart. I wonder I did not receive more injury. When I delivered this book, and had given him an account of my life and sins as best I could, in a general way, for I did not make a confession, because he was a layman, though yet I made him understand how wicked I was, these two servants of God considered, with great charity and love, what was proper to be done. The answer having come, which I was expecting with great fear, and having requested many persons to recommend me to God, besides praying myself during all those days with much affliction, the gentlemen came to me and told me, the opinion of both of them was, that my prayer was a delusion of the devil, and that the best thing to do would be to speak on the matter to a certain father of the Society of Jesus. For if I would invite him to call on me, and tell him how I was situated, he would most certainly come. That I should give him an account of my whole life by making a general confession, and explaining everything with great clearness, and that then, in the virtue of the sacrament of penance, God would give him more light to guide me. That the fathers were men of great experience in spiritual matters, and that it would be well to be careful in not departing from what they told me, for if I had no one to direct me, that I should expose myself to great danger. These words filled me with so much fear and pain that I knew not what to do. I did nothing but weep. And being one day in an oratory full of trouble, and not knowing what would become of me, I read in a book, which it seems our Lord put into my hands, these words of St. Paul: God is faithful, and will not suffer us to be tempted above our strength. I was comforted exceedingly by these words, and began to consider about making my general confession, and to put in writing all the sins and blessings, and the whole history of my life, as clearly as I knew how, without omitting anything. I remember that when I read over what I had written, and saw how many sins I had recounted, and that I had done hardly any good action, I was grieved and afflicted exceedingly. I was also troubled that the people of the house should see me conversing with such holy men as those of the Society of Jesus are, for I was afraid of my own wickedness. And I thought I should be obliged to be wicked no more, and that I should give up my idle conversations, and that, if I did not, it would be worse for me. And so I prevailed on the portress and the sacristan not to speak to anyone. But this precaution was of little use, for there happened to be one at the gate, when I was called, who published it all over the convent. But what difficulties and troubles does the devil raise against those who desire to approach near to God? After I had spoken with this great servant of God concerning my soul, and had given him an account of my whole life, he told me what everything was as one well acquainted with this language. And he encouraged me much, and told me that my prayer was very evidently from the Spirit of God, but that I must return to it again, because I was not well grounded therein, nor had I so much as begun to know what mortification was. This was very true, for it seems I hardly understood even the name. He told me also that I must on no account give up my prayer, but rather apply